Welcome back. I was explaining about the Stoics, and there are famous names in the group of Stoics. There were the early Stoics with the name Zeno, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus. The middle Stoics, Panaetios and Posidonius, and the late Stoics included Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Actually, some of them, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, very famous. They taught that there are sufferings, but accept the sufferings. Their philosophy actually was in a way continuing the philosophy of Plato and Aristotle. The basic things they took from Plato and Aristotle, but then they taught a new ethos, a new attitude that is especially having profound effect on ethics. The Stoic ideal is the wise man who lives in accordance with nature, controlling the affections, enduring suffering calmly, and as the goal of his life, to be content with whatever he faces, he has to face, to be content with virtue as the only source of happiness. They taught, become virtuous, that will make you happy. In that process, you will have to suffer. Accept the suffering patiently, without grumbling, without complaining. And they also taught that God is a species of world soul. God is a fiery spirit, and from that fiery spirit, a spark comes down into us, which makes us alive. A spark from God comes into matter to make matter alive. And when we die, that spark goes back to God. That is the type of theology, if you want. That's the type of the concept of God that they had. And they said, everything in this world possesses the powers of God in a seminal form, in small bits. And since those bits are in everything, the things develop. So everything in the world is in a way formed by that seminal bit of God in them, that spark of God in the matter. And that is what makes the things in this world, so many various things, whatever we may say, it may be the plants, there may be other things, maybe the trees, everything is actually formed by that spark of God in them. And that makes them what they are. Because everything is actually guided by that spark, everything that happens in this world is like the will of God. We must accept it without resentment, without complaint. They said there is no personal freedom. They taught fatalism. Our life is determined by that spark of God in me. My life is totally dictated by that spark, determined by that spark. So there is no point in complaining about it. Just accept it as it is, and in that way life becomes rather hard, but we are asked to follow this. The Stoics taught like this, and the Stoics talked with Paul. Paul actually, maybe after this discussion with these two groups, went up to the Areopagus, which is the council, the city council, and Paul talked to the people there, and he said, I admire your faith. I admire your religious life. I admire the way you express your faith, because everywhere I can see idols. Everywhere you have idols. And that shows you are a very religious people. I am happy to see your religiosity. In fact, in Athens, everywhere there were temples and there were idols. And as he proceeded, he addressed the people, the elders in Areopagus, and he said, I saw one particular altar, an altar to the unknown God, and you offer sacrifices there. Paul told them, I came to talk to you about that unknown God. My God is that unknown God. And so, I will tell about that unknown God. Then people were interested. They were listening very, very interestedly, and Paul began to tell them about Jesus Christ. Now, the altar to the unknown God is something interesting. Somewhere in 600 BC, Athens was under the grip of a pest, a sickness. People were dying. They didn't know what to do. Whatever they did was not effective. Finally, a poet from Crete named Epimenides, he came forward and said, I will suggest something. I will show you a way to get this pestilence stopped. And he went to Areopagus with a flock of sheep. The sheep was there, a whole lot of them. And he said, starve the sheep for a few days. They literally starved the sheep. No food for them, no water for them, nothing. And then the sheep was let loose. Naturally, they would be hungry. Immediately they would go and graze, eat grass, and there was plenty of grass there. A few went and grazed, but most of them did not graze, did not eat at all. They just remained where they were. That was a real surprise. So, what they did, they caught hold of those sheep that did not graze, and they cut them, offered as sacrifice. And there they built for that sacrifice an altar. And in that way there were hundreds of altars, because all the sheep that did not eat, did not graze, they offered as sacrifice. And they said, that is the altar of the unknown God. This happened somewhere in 600 BC, 600 years before Paul went there. And everywhere there were altars to the unknown God to prevent any pestilence coming into, any plague coming into Athens. And it seems it was effective. After that, there was no pestilence. And over the years, many altars were not used, and because of the disuse, the altars crumbled. A few of them were rebuilt and so on. And Paul actually went to those altars and prayed. Prayed not to the unknown God. The unknown God is Jesus. Paul told them Athenians, that God is now with you. That God is alive. You think that you don't know him. He is not the unknown God. He is Jesus Christ. And many believed, many started worshipping Jesus. As this event happened, and there were some disturbance again, but then from Athens, Paul had to move. Paul had already Silas and Timothy with him. He told Silas and Timothy to remain in one place. Paul continued his journey, and finally Paul reached Corinth. Corinth was another island, another big city. Corinth was a big city because of the commercial importance of Corinth. In order to understand the commercial importance, Corinth stands on an isthmus. Isthmus means a narrow patch of land. On both sides is ocean, but connecting the land on this side and the land on that side. In other words, those who are here on my left hand side, they can just walk maybe about 8 kilometers, walk and reach the other side of the land. That is an isthmus. It's a narrow strip of land with the sea on either side. And Corinth was on this isthmus.